Okay, so daily Chumash for the 20th of Tammuz, the 16th, July 16th, fourth Aliyah, Chayinu, page 30. Hashem said to Moshe saying the following. Oh, remember in the middle of the saga of the daughters of Tzalafchad, that they were very courageous, and they went to the Moshe Rabbeinu's study hall, and they petitioned to inherit their father because he had no sons, and they loved the land of Israel. They wanted their father's portion to stay in the family. So Moshe didn't know what to do because Hashem wanted. We said why Moshe didn't know what to do, and he had to go to Hashem. And this is what Hashem responds to the daughters of Tzalafchad's request. Hashem said to Moshe saying, the daughters of Tzalafchad are pleading correctly. They speak well. Now, you should give to them a possession of inherited property among their father's brothers, and transfer their father's heritable property to them.
Rashi. I don't see how it's going to work out in practice, though.
Let's see. Zion. So it says, how do you translate it? It's a little bit unusual. So Rashi tells us, the way Onkelos translates it is Cain means Ya'us. Ya'us is Aramaic for correct. They speak correctly. Hashem said that they speak right. This is the way the divine law is in heaven, that if there's no sons, it goes to daughters. This gives us a little insight that these women, by their intuition, their eyes perceive something that Moshe's eyes did not. The daughters of Tzalafchad speak correctly. So Rashi says, Yafa Tavu, they spoke fairly. Praised is the person whose words Hashem agrees to. So, this is about confirmation. I'm a little bit confused why Rashi is including running commentary and lucky is one who God agrees. It's interesting. You see, it's kind of like wow, they're so lucky. Usually don't say that, but it's interesting. It must be something we have to learn from here. I just don't know what. You shall surely give to them. It's a double expression. Give means two portions. Chelek avihan shoyimit Mitzrayim. Give them the portion of their father, who was one of those who left Egypt, and v'chelkoi imecha b'nechsei Chefer, and his portion with his brothers in the possession of Chefer. Okay. Continuing on, Vavarta, and transfer Lashon Evra hu b'mishen menich ben liyarshav. So transfer means secondary option. Someone who doesn't have sons, biblically sons are the only ones who inherit the estate. If they have no sons, the person has no sons, it's transferred to his daughters.
Why is it say, Rashi says, an expression of wrath?
Whoa, you're right. I take it back. I made a mistake.
Anger. It's...
I take it back. So... let's read Rashi, then we'll question it. So it's a language of Evra means of displeasure. Someone who doesn't have a son. Why is it his fault? I don't know. Let's see you soon. Another interpretation is Hashem Shabbas Ma'averes Nachla Mishiv L'Shevet. Another explanation is that a daughter transfers heritable property from one tribe to another. Shibna Ubayla Yershanesa, because her son and her husband inherit her. Shlitisiv Nachla. So the secondary interpretation is much more understandable, which is that if you have a daughter gets it, let's say she marries another tribe, so you're taking away in the territory of one tribe, you're giving it to a non-local, which is not good. It's not ideal. You see, the language of inheritance, usually it's give the inheritance, but in the case of a daughter, it's transfer it. So the way they understand it is actually the super commentaries of Rashi explain that they actually, one of them thinks that there's a misprint and shouldn't be Lashon Evra, like God is angry when someone doesn't have a son to leave the thing, because first of all, it's a less obvious it's a less obvious translation. And typically, if it's a less obvious translation, that should be the secondary interpretation Rashi brings. He usually brings when he brings two interpretations of a word or a phrase, the first one is the more truer to the context and the language. And the second one is a little less so. But here it's the opposite. He's bringing, how do you translate Vavarta? Why this unusual word? Because God's angry when someone doesn't have a son. It doesn't sound right, and B, it's at best it's a very secondary type of interpretation. So they actually retranslate it as not l'shein evra, an expression of wrath, but l'shein havara, it's an expression of transfer, of uprooting, because every time the inheritance doesn't go to the son, it's an expression of uprooting. It's a son really takes the place of his father. So there's a continuation of the original property being in the father through the son. If there's no son, there's always a concept of uprooting it, giving it to even a daughter, but it's not the same as a son who would take more the father's place. So that's the way they understand it, which makes a little more sense to me. All right, Ches. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, Ish ki amuz, if a man dies, and he has no son, you shall transfer his heritable property to his daughter. If a man dies and has no son, you shall transfer his heritable property to his daughter. So now it's kind of enshrining this as law. It wasn't given yet. It was given, they kind of prompted this mitzvah, which was one of the mitzvahs, but wasn't given yet. If there's no son, it goes to the daughter. Tess, and if there's no bas, and the laws of inheritance continue, if there's no son, there's no children. When then the deceased property goes, you give it to his brothers. If he has no brothers, if there's no brothers, the next in the pecking order is, you shall give his property to his father's brothers. If I'm not mistaken, if the grandfather would be alive, which is not typically the case, it would go to the grandfather, and if not him, then to the brothers. But I think it's talking the norm. There's no grandfather alive. All right, Yud Aleph. If there's no brothers to his father, then if there's no sons, no daughters, his father, there's no grandfather, no uncles from the father, no paternal, uncles. Then you look for any relatives that are descendants of his father and you give it to them. So, for example, let's say there's a niece or a nephew from the paternal line. There's no other earlier, heirs. Then they would get it. Look in the laws of inheritance in Maimonides. And this shall be a decree a statutory law for the children of Israel, kasher tivashas Moshe, as Hashem has commanded Moshe. Rashi says, to his nearest relative, and family in this context only means his paternal family, his family from his father. Okay, Yud Beis. Next page, 33, verse 12. Hashem said to Moshe, Alei el har ha'avorim hazeh, Moshe, send this Mount Havarim, Ure'eis Aretz, and see the land, Asher Nesati le'Yisrael, I'm giving the land to the children of Israel. So Moshe, now on to the next episode. God is telling Moshe, look at the land that you're not going to go into, but at least look at it. Alei el har ha'avorim, a sound Mount Havarim. So the Rashi asks right away, why is this juxtaposed to the laws of Tzlafchad? Seemingly, it would have been much more appropriate to put it in Devarim, chapter 32, which talks about prior to Moshe's passing. So Rashi says, why is it given right here? Since Hashem said to Moshe, you shall give to them, which could be read as, the royal, like you, somebody should give it to them, or you, as in Moshe, shall give them the land, the daughters of Tzlafchad. Amar, maybe it's that Hashem is commanding me to go through the land and bequeath them their portion. It's maybe the decree of the decree that my punishment to not go in was revoked, and I can go in. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem responded, nope, my decree that you can't go in remains. And when I say you give, I mean someone should give it to them, but not you. That's why it's juxtaposed, where Moshe is going to get to see it, but be reminded he can't go in. Davar Acher, another explanation of why it's juxtaposed, Moshe seeing the land and the daughters of Tzlafchad. Once Moshe entered into the land on the western side of the Jordan, which ultimately became the land of Gad and Ruvain, Samach v'Yomar, he was rejoicing, and he said, Kimeduma shoteli nidri, he said, it seems my vows annulled. Like, he got to go, let's say, to the adjacent annexed land to Israel. Maybe I'm in. Nothing happened. Maybe I get to go into the mainland. I guess it means juxtaposed to the upcoming Parsha, maybe. We're just going to talk about Bnei Gad and Ruvain. So then Hashem to remind him, you can't go in, right? A parable would this be, let's say a king banished his son. You can't come to the palace. You misbehaved. You were out past curfew. You can't go to the palace, right? So one time the son, he wants to go back to the palace. So he comes to the gate. I'm sorry, the king enters the gate around the palace, and the son, sneaks behind him. The king goes to the courtyard, and the son, who's punished for a month, who can't go in, he sneaks in behind him to the courtyard. The king goes to the royal chamber, and the son, L'traklan means the chamber, and the son sneaks in behind him, and he's not being reprimanded. Once the king is about to enter his private room, and the son wants to push his luck, Amrloi Bini says, my son, Mekan ve'elech atas l'kanes, from here on you can't go. So too, Moshe was allowed to go as close as possible to Israel proper, which is God's private chamber. But once he got to the the inner sanctum, the inner line, Hashem is reminding you can't go. I let you go to adjacent and maybe annexed land, but not inside. Yud Gimel, for Isa, Hashem's telling him, go up in the mountain, you will see it. And you will be gathered unto your people, just as Aaron your brother was gathered. Just as Aaron your brother was gathered. And from here, we see that Moshe desired Aaron's form of death. You're going to be go up and see, and then you'll pass away like Aaron. Why like Aaron? Because Aaron had a very special, beautiful, pleasant passing where it's called the God kissed him. In a sense, it was very painless and seamless and beautiful. So we see that Moshe also wanted that. Davarach, another explanation is of this: you'll be gathered like Aaron. Einat t'toiv menu. You're no better than Aaron. Because why did Aaron pass away? Why was he punished? Because he didn't protest by the water hitting the rock. Again, he's just reminding him that you and Aaron kind of are together punished that you can't go in because of that lack of Kiddush Hashem by the rock. We good? Continuing on. Now, Rashi has a long parentheses, which are digression sort of, but it's related. Page 34. Wherever it mentions Moshe and Aaron's death, it mentions their sin. It's constantly mentioning their sin or alludes to their sin. Why? Because the main part of the Jewish people, why didn't they get to go in? Why did the generation of the Exodus forfeit going into the land? Because of a big sin, the rebellion of the spies. So Moshe asked Hashem, that every time Moshe and Aaron are mentioned that they're passing away, it should mention their unique reason, that it's not like everybody else that really rebelled and was of little faith to Hashem. But they had much more minor offenses that was a deal for them being so righteous, but it's not the same heinous level of what the bulk of the nation did. So that's why Moshe wanted, that's why it's constantly mentioned, you're being punished, you're going to die because you didn't sanctify me by the waters. And he gives a parable of two women who are being flogged, and they're being given lashes and based. One of them was an unfaithful, acted immorally, something promiscuous. Okay, there was lashes for that. The other one ate page shvius, te'enim. They basically, someone ate they snuck some of the Shemitah food when they weren't supposed to. Right? A much more minor offense. One's promiscuous and one ate something that they shouldn't have eaten. But for whatever reason, it's the same. It's both a prohibition. You both get the malchus. You get lashes for both those offenses. So the one who was getting punished for the minor offense of eating the figs of Shemitah, she said, when you punish me, mention what my offense was. So people shouldn't think that this woman is a known promiscuous person and she's being flogged, and they should assume I did the same thing by association. So delineate what she's being flogged for, and delineate what I'm being flogged for. So too here, every time it mentions Moshe and Aaron's passing, it mentions what their offense was to explain that they were not the same level of offense of the rest of that generation. Yodalit. And this was decreed upon you because you disobeyed my orders in the Sin desert, with the waters of by the contention of the people. You failed, you disobeyed me to sanctify me by the waters in front of them. These are the waters of contention at Kadesh in the Tzin desert. Rashi, these are the waters of contention at Kadesh. Meaning, again, this is their sole transgression. Very, very relatively minor or much more subtle than everybody else's. Again, it's saying that is what their problem was. Nothing else. Everything else, they were perfect tzaddikim as far as going in.
This is what we carry with us for eternity.
I mean, yes, and we're given everything from the Torah, all the good, all the things we have to fix up. We got to just, connect, put things in the right place. Another interpretation of why it's saying these are the waters of contention. These waters were the cause of the rebellion at Mara. They caused the rebellion at the Sea of Reeds. They were the self-same waters that caused the rebellion in the Sin Desert. So it's saying the same well and rock that there's two times. There was a time of thirst in the beginning of the 40 years. Moshe hit the rock, and it's the same water, and the Jews were rebellious there. These are the same well later on, 40 years later. That's why it's saying these are the waters of contention, meaning the ones that Moshe was punished for at the end of the 40 years is the same well and rock that Moshe dealt with 40 years earlier. Continuing Tezvav. Moshe said to Hashem, saying, Rashi, Moshe spoke to Hashem. This informs you. Now we're getting on to the next thing. Moshe, when he's told, he's reminded that he's not going to live to enter and take the people into the promised land. What's Moshe's first thing he does? He's going to ask for Hashem to give an appropriate replacement leader for him. This tells you the greatness of the righteous. And Moshe is about to pass away, and all he cares about is about who's going to lead the people next. Leimar, Moshe spoke to Hashem. Usually, Leimar means to repeat over, but he's not speaking to repeat over to the people. So Leimar means here, he spoke to Hashem to give him an answer. Please, let me ask you something and answer me if you will appoint them a good leader or not. So here's what Moshe says in Tezayin, Yifkad Hashem Elokei Ruchos al Basar. May Hashem, the God of all people's characters, the God of ruchos, of spirits, here means, we'll see Rashi translated as character, of all people. Ishal Eda, may he appoint a man over the community. Rashi, Yifkad Hashem. It's interesting, Moshe, when he saw that Hashem responded favorably to the request of Tzlafchad's daughters to give them their inheritance, he said, maybe I'll request that my inheritance, what's Moshe's inheritance? His leadership position. He'll ask that should be given over to his sons. Very common thing to give over a position of leadership to sons. He says, maybe I should ask now for that. Amar LaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is going to say to him, this is what Hashem said. This is not my intention, because Yeshua is going to be the one. Yeshua deserves it because he was the most devoted to you. He never left his tent to say, he never left you whenever it was possible, the tent of Torah from you. And this is what Shlomo Melech said, he who nurtures a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who waits on his master will be honored. Elokei Ruach is God of all people's characters. So Ruach usually means spirit, here means characters. Why is this stated? Because he's asking not just appoint someone all the people, appoint someone that can be over people, all the different types of characters, someone that really bring all the personalities, can help all the different personalities. Hashem, you, we know when you see 600,000 Jews together, there's a blessing. Baruch Hashem, Chacham Harazim, the one who is wise of all the secrets, meaning God is the, you see so many people, it's only God knows the mind, the hearts of each of these people. So that's Hashem's, one of his superpowers. He knows everybody's heart. But when you point Hashem, when you're going to point a leader, you're going to point a Rebbe, you have to give them some of that superpower to tolerate and deal and empathize with all people's different personalities, characters. Yud Zayin, and this is long. Again, this should be a person who will go out in front of them, who will come in front of them. Who will bring them out, bring them in. And will not be, so it should not be the congregation of God, like sheep without a shepherd. Right? Because again, the characters of leadership, we call this a shepherd. And here's where you see it. Yudzayin. Who will go in front of them. He'll go in front of them, not in the way of kings of the nations who stay at home and send the troops to war. Have a leader, do like I did. I alone fought Sichon and Oig. As it says, Al Tiro Esoi. So too, Yeshua, we're going to see, is not this kind of ivory tower leader. Rather, he goes out to battle. David goes. He goes out at the head of the war. A leader who will lead them out. And here it says more in a proverbial way, who will lead them out with his merits. Who will bring them in with his merits, meaning the schusim of this leader, the merits, will be the one to merit great salvation in their wars and lack of loss of life. Another interpretation of bring them in, bring them out, bring them in. Will bring them in. I ask you, do not do to. You're going to appoint someone, second time's a charm. You shouldn't do to them what you did to me, that you didn't let me go in. Let the next leader promise me he'll get to go in all the way. Yeshua will bring them in. Yud Ches 18. Hashem said to Moshe, take him, the one who you know well, Yeshua ben Nun, Ish HaShuruch Boi, a man who has a considerate character. Samach yad chalav, and you shall rest your hand upon him. Rashi Kalacha, take for you. Take, again, many, many times in Torah, Rashi tells us take means figuratively. Take him with words, persuade him with the following. Tell him how lucky you are, Joshua, that you are the one who merit to be the one to lead the children of God into the promised land. Take for you, Moshe, take the one that you know, the one that you've checked out and proven, the one you know well. So you, Moshe, have to be the one to convince him. Asheruach Bai, the one who has character. Kasher Shalta, as you requested, that he should have the character, he should have the people skills to deal with all the different personalities. You shall rest your hand upon him. What does that mean? Rashi says, meaning, rest your hand. So literally smicha, I guess the smicha is a concept. Smicha used to be you would rest your hand to show conferring on the person, the leadership. But here it says, Tein lo miturgama. You actually give him a spokesman. That he will speak publicly in your lifetime. Someone who was, whenever Moshe spoke, he would have someone who then repeat his words. That's called a meturgiman, a spokesman. So give him the same thing in your life, so people will see that you're really giving him the leadership position by giving him the leadership spokesman. You shall stand him before Elazar, the high priest, and before the entire congregation. And you shall direct him concerning Israel in full view of the people, of the community. Rashi says how you direct him. About the people of Israel, no, they are bothersome. Don't hide from him the truth. The Jews, the Israelites they can be bothersome. They can be stubborn. And remind him that he'll be a leader with this, accepting this fact of life. Next chaf, verse chaf. You shall place on your majesty upon him, in order that the entire children of Israel should heed his words. You shall place on your majesty upon him. This refers to the shining skin of your face. From all of your majesty, not all your majesty. So give him some of your majesty, from your splendor. implying that Moshe's godly shine was akin to the sun, like a higher level light, and Yeshua was like was a moon. It was a reflection. The man Yishmael calls Israel, in order that the community of Israel shall listen to him, that they should treat him with respect and honor as they did to you. So you're going to do this in your lifetime, appoint him, so they will really take it seriously and accept his leadership. And Chav and he, Yeshua, Joshua, will stand before Elazar, and he will stand before Elazar, the high priest, and he will inquire of him the ruling of the Urim, between the breastplate before Hashem.
Why is the Turim left out?
I don't know. And by its word, by Elazar, I guess through the divine spirit, through the Urim and Tumim, they will go out to war and they will come in from war. He and all of Israel with him, as well as the congregation. Rashi, to translate the words, before Allah, the high priest, he will stand. He's actually saying, Hashem saying that, you asked a request that your sons should get your leadership, and I'm not granting that. But the fact that the house of Moshe and our brothers should always be in the leadership position is going to be integrated into anybody's leadership, Yeshua from a different tribe, because Yeshua will still have that certain key national questions have to ask Elazar, Aaron's son, Moshe's nephew, what to do. So it's not totally taking away the leadership from your family. It's just going to be through your nephew as well as Yeshua. Mishal Eloi, inquire of him. They will inquire. We have to go to war, a national importance thing. Alpiv, and by his Elazar's words, and Yeshua, as well as the entire assembly. That refers to the Sanhedrin. So in other words, that in order to go to war, a non-obligatory war, they have to get permission from the high priest via the Urim and Tumim, and they have to also, the king has to get permission to be consulted with the Sanhedrin. Okay.
So you're saying that the whole Bnei Yisrael is referring to the Sanhedrin?
The Eda.
Okay.
That's what I understand it in the bottom.
Oh, B'chol Eda.
All right. V'yas Moshe Chabez. Moshe did as Hashem said. Hashem commanded him. Yeshua, and Yeshua took Yeshua. He placed him before Elazar, the high priest, before all the congregation, the Sanhedrin, I think, or the people. Maybe here it means literally the whole congregation. Okay. Chaf Beis, he took Yeshua. Again, he took him with words, and he informed him of the reward of the leaders of Israel in the world to come. And again, persuading that as hard as the role of leadership and as lonely as it is, he persuaded him to do it. Chav Gimel, he rested his hands upon him, and he directed him, just as Hashem had spoken through Moshe. Chav Gimel, as Yadav, he rested his hands ba'ayin yafa in a generous way, far more than he was commanded for the Holy One, blessed be He. I told him, you shall rest your hand upon him. And he placed both hands. He thus made him like a full overflowing vessel and filled him generously with his wisdom. So he rested his hands in a very generous way, because Hashem said you should just rest your hands, singular. And Moshe says his hands, implying he was giving him more of his spiritual powers and in a very powerful way. He gave him in a way of a full overflowing vessel and filled him generously with his wisdom. Yeah. Interesting. It says in the bottom here in 103, Malechus HaKodesh, I'm not sure who that commentary is, says this might be the explanation why of all the characters in the Torah, the only one that's called Yoshua bin Nun, right? We don't say Yeshua ben Nun, we say bin Nun, right? So it's a bit of a question, why? So he says because bin is a play on the word of ben and bina of godly knowledge, of understanding. It's implying that he was Yeshua, not just the son of Nun, but also a double entendre. He had a tremendous amount of bina because Moshe gave him both hands with all his tremendous amount of divine
You
inspiration.
could attribute it to his father too. Nun. Nun is always mentioned.
Yeah, but I'm saying it would seem to be that the leadership inspiration, prophetic inspiration would be like Moshe. But regardless, it's the main thing is that he had it. He had that. And here we're connecting the dots that it came from Moshe's, putting both hands, which was symbolic of Moshe really giving him everything, so much more than even he had to give him. Very powerful. Okay. And let's do the daily mitzvah. Wednesday, the 119th mitzvah is that we are commanded to treat as holy the fruit which grows in the fourth year. So we know 3 years, the first plantings are called arla, they're off limits. And the fourth year is called neta rivai, the fourth year planting. You have to take some of that fruit. You take that fruit and eat it in Jerusalem. Like similar to the second tithe, you have to bring the second tithe, eat in Jerusalem. Big kiddush.